A man demanded I pay for his groceries because I clearly had more money. When I refused, he yelled in the checkout line, "You're so selfish. People like me deserve help." The cashier smirked as she canceled his order and whispered, "Then you'll love putting everything back yourself." I was at the grocery store one Saturday afternoon, picking up supplies for the week. My cart was moderately filled with essentials: rice, vegetables, some meat, and a few snacks. As I approached the checkout lanes, I noticed they were all quite busy. I chose one that seemed to be moving steadily and queued up. Behind me, a man in his late 40s or early 50s lined up. He had a lean build, sun-weathered skin, and wore clothes that had seen better days. His cart held only a few items: a small bag of rice, some canned sardines, and instant noodles. As we waited, he struck up a conversation. "Looks like you're buying a lot today," he commented. "Yeah, just stocking up for the week," I replied casually. He nodded, then added, "Must be nice to have that kind of money." I wasn't sure how to respond, so I offered a neutral, "I suppose so." The line moved forward, and soon it was my turn. I began placing my items on the conveyor belt. The man behind me watched intently. As I was about to pay, he stepped closer and said, "Hey, since you're buying so much, maybe you could help me out and cover my groceries too?" I was taken aback. "I'm sorry, but I can't do that," I replied firmly. His demeanor changed instantly. Raising his voice, he exclaimed, "You're so selfish. People like me deserve help." The surrounding customers turned to look. The cashier, a young woman with a calm presence, observed the situation without intervening immediately. I maintained my composure. "I understand times are tough, but it's not appropriate to demand money from strangers." He scoffed. "People like you have no idea what it's like to struggle." The cashier then spoke up. "Sir," she addressed the man, "if you're unable to pay for your items, I'll need to cancel your order." He glared at her. "You're really going to deny me food?" She remained steady. "Store policy requires all items to be paid for." Frustrated, he turned to me. "You could easily afford this. Why won't you help?" I responded. "It's not about affordability. It's about boundaries and respect." He muttered under his breath, "Unbelievable," and stormed out of the store, leaving his cart behind. The cashier began removing his items from the conveyor belt. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that," she said to me. "It's all right," I replied, handing her my payment. "Thank you for handling it professionally." As I left the store, I reflected on the encounter. It's important to be compassionate, but it's equally important to recognize when someone is trying to take advantage of that compassion. I figured that was the end of it. Just another weird encounter in public, something to laugh about later. But I was wrong. A few days later, I walked into the same grocery store again. I didn't think much about what happened last time, until I saw him. He was there. Same man. Leaning against a rack near the entrance, arms crossed, watching people come and go. He wasn't shopping. He was just watching. I kept my head down and walked past him, hoping he wouldn't recognize me. But as I grabbed a basket and made my way to the produce section, I heard his voice behind me. "So you've got money for grapes and cheese now, huh?" I froze. Looked over my shoulder. He was standing there, arms wide open like he just caught me stealing. "You really think you're better than everyone else, don't you?" "I don't want any trouble," I said, trying to walk away. But he followed. "You humiliated me the other day. In front of everyone. You think that makes you a hero?" I stopped and turned to face him. "You made a scene because I wouldn't pay for your groceries. That's not on me." He stepped closer, and for a second, I thought he might swing at me. But instead, he smiled. A strange, tight smile that made me feel colder than if he'd yelled again. "We'll see how long you can act like you're better than everyone," he said. Then he turned and walked out. I stood there for a moment, heart pounding. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Over the next week, weird things started happening. One morning, I came out to my car and found all 4 tires slashed. No note. Nothing stolen. Just wrecked. Another day, I got a call from my building security telling me someone had tried to follow me inside. Said he claimed to be a friend coming by to talk about a debt. Thankfully, the guards didn't buy it. And then, the worst part, my boss called me into her office. "We got a complaint about you," she said carefully. "Someone called HR and said you've been harassing people in public. That you've made threats." I was stunned. "What?" "That's completely false." "I believe you," she said. "But we still have to look into it." I left that meeting shaking. This guy wasn't just some loud stranger anymore. He was trying to ruin my life. So I started doing some digging. I talked to the grocery store employees. Asked if they knew him. Turns out, he was a regular. Not shopping, just hanging around. Always asking customers for a little help. Sometimes they gave in. Sometimes they didn't. But if they didn't, they usually had stories like mine. One guy said the man followed him home once. Another said his car got keyed. A woman claimed he tried to guilt her into buying him cigarettes and yelled at her when she said no. He was a known problem. But no one ever did anything about it. So I made a plan. I started keeping my phone ready. Recording every interaction. Documenting every incident. If he so much as looked at me funny, I had it on video. Then one day, he cornered me in the parking lot. Said I owed him. Said I made him look like a fool and that I'd ruined his reputation at the store. That's when I hit record. He ranted for 5 full minutes. Called me names. Said he knew where I worked, where I lived, even mentioned my license plate number. And then he said, "You'll see. You think you're safe. But I'm patient." I uploaded the video that night. Sent it to the store manager. Sent it to the police. Even emailed it to HR to show them who this guy really was. I thought that would be the end of it. But what happened next? I didn't see coming. A few days passed after I sent the video around. I figured I had finally done enough to make this guy back off. The store manager thanked me and said they'd banned him. The police took my statement and said they'd look into it. HR eased off and closed the complaint after seeing the footage. I thought maybe I could breathe again. But then, something strange happened. I got a letter in my mailbox. No name, just my address scrawled in red ink. Inside was a folded piece of paper with one sentence written on it. "You've made this personal." That's it. No return address. No fingerprints, obviously. Just that. I tried to stay calm, but I knew this wasn't over. Then I started noticing new people outside my building. A guy in a denim jacket hanging around too often. A woman sitting in a parked car across the street for hours. At first, I thought maybe I was being paranoid. But when I left for work one morning and noticed someone had scratched the word, "liar," into the side of my car, I knew I wasn't imagining it. This was targeted. So I called the police again, showed them the letter and photos of the car. They filed another report, told me they'd increase patrols. But they didn't seem too urgent about it. I tried to keep a low profile. Changed my routine. Took different routes to work. But then, another twist dropped out of nowhere. I got a call from an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. He said someone had contacted him through Facebook pretending to be me, asking for money, claiming I was in trouble and needed help wiring funds to a random bank account. It wasn't just one friend. Over the next 2 days, 3 more people reached out to me about similar messages. One even said the scammer used details that weren't public, like my old apartment number from years ago, and the name of my first job. Someone had clearly dug into my life. At that point, I realized this guy wasn't just unhinged, he was smart. He wasn't coming at me physically anymore. He was trying to wreck my life from the inside out. And it was working. So I dug deeper. I needed to know who he really was. I went back to the store, talked to an older employee who'd been there the longest. She remembered the guy. "Oh, that's Alex," she said. "Real name's Alejandro Pascual. Used to be a teacher or something years ago. Had some kind of breakdown. Heard he got fired for threatening a student. Never really got back on his feet." That gave me something to work with. I started searching public records. Found a few court filings, small claim suits, a restraining order from a former neighbor, even an old misdemeanor charge for harassment. I gathered everything I could. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I kept it all. Just in case. Then came the final straw. I got called into the police station. They said someone had accused me of assault. A man claimed I followed him to his home and threatened him with a weapon. The report was anonymous, but the description of the suspect matched me exactly. Right down to the car I drove. I couldn't believe it. Thankfully, I had dashcam footage from that day showing exactly where I was, miles away from where the fake incident supposedly happened. It cleared me. But the message was clear, this guy was trying to get me arrested. That's when I stopped playing defense. I started planning something much bigger. Something he wouldn't see coming. And I wasn't going to stop until he was done for good. It all came to a head on a muggy Thursday afternoon. I was leaving work when I noticed a car following me. Not close enough to crash into me, but not far enough to ignore. I made 4 turns, all random, off my usual route. It followed me every single time. I drove straight to the nearest police station. As I pulled into the lot, the car sped off. But I got a good look at the driver this time. It was him. Alejandro. The officers took my statement, but even they looked tired of seeing me. "We need more than just a car following you," one said, almost apologetically. "We can't do much unless he breaks a law." I'd had enough. So I went public. I posted everything on social media. Every message. Every video. Every creepy interaction. I shared my story on a local Facebook group with over 50,000 members. I named him. I tagged the grocery store. I tagged the police department. Within hours, my phone exploded. People came out of nowhere with their own stories. "He did the same thing to me at the bus station. He followed my sister home once. I had to quit my job because he kept waiting outside. He'd been doing this for years. And nobody had put it all together, until now." The post went viral locally. Then regional news picked it up. Then national. That's when everything truly blew up. A week later, the store hosted a town hall type meeting. They were trying to show they were taking safety seriously. Security improvements. More cameras. A place for people to report harassment. I was asked to speak. I didn't want to, but I felt like I had to. The place was packed. I got up and told my story again. Raw. Direct. Simple words, no fluff. I didn't dress it up. I just told people how it started with a single demand in a checkout line, and spiraled into months of psychological warfare. And then someone interrupted me mid-sentence. Alejandro. He walked into the back of the room, wearing a wrinkled shirt and holding a worn-out folder. Security moved to stop him, but he raised his hands and said, "I'm not here to cause trouble." He walked to the front of the room and asked to speak. The room was dead silent. The organizers looked at me. I nodded. I wanted to hear what he'd say. Alejandro took the mic and looked straight at me. "You think you're better than me?" he started. "You think this was about groceries? It was never about groceries." His voice cracked. "I lost everything. My job, my family. I used to teach math at a public school in Surigao. A student made a false claim. I got fired. Blacklisted. I tried everything. I begged for help. People laughed. They walked past me like I didn't exist." He looked around the room. "He wasn't the first person I asked. He was just the first one who made me feel invisible." And I snapped. People murmured. Someone in the back yelled, "That doesn't justify stalking." He kept going. I was angry. I thought, if I could just make him feel like I did, helpless, targeted, then maybe someone would notice me. He put down the mic and sat on the floor. Quiet. Empty. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part just wanted it to be over. A woman stood up, a teacher. She said, "We all have pain. But pain doesn't give you the right to pass it on." Someone else added, "You made people afraid to live their lives. That's not justice. That's just cruelty." Security escorted Alejandro out. The police were already waiting outside. I stood there, hands trembling. Not out of fear anymore, but something else. Something heavier. Guilt? I didn't owe him money. I didn't deserve to be stalked or harassed. But maybe, just maybe, I was the tipping point for a man who'd already been drowning. After the meeting, people came up to me. Thanked me. Apologized for not speaking sooner. A few cried. And yet, all I could think about was how something so petty had turned into something so toxic and dark. The days that followed were quiet. Alejandro was charged with multiple counts of harassment and stalking. He pleaded guilty. Last I heard, he was getting court-ordered psychiatric treatment. A long list of restraining orders followed. I started sleeping better. I went back to my routines. The store hired better security. HR left me alone. Life slowly pieced itself back together. But I was changed. I don't look at strangers the same way anymore. I don't ignore red flags. I still believe in helping people, but I've learned how thin the line is between kindness and being a target. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had just paid for his groceries that day. Would it have made a difference? Or was the fire already lit long before I walked into that store? I don't know. All I know is that not every monster starts out that way. Some are made bit, by the world, by bad luck, by their own broken choices. But once they are made, it's up to the rest of us to say, "No more." And I did.